H-E-L-L-O.
H-E-L-L-O.
This is how we say hello.
This is how we say hello.
Move your feet to the beat.
Move your feet to the beat.
Can you feel my heart beat?
Can you feel my heartbeat?
H-E-L-L-O.
H-E-L-L-O.
This is how we say hello.
This is how we say hello.
Move your feet to the beat.
Move your feet to the beat.
Can you feel my heart beat?
Can you feel my heartbeat?
Brilliant. Thank you for joining in. This time we're going to clap a rhythm in between each line, so I want you to just join in with us. Off we go. H-E-L-L-O. This is how we say hello. Move your feet to the beat. Can you feel my heart beat? I didn't hear you say the words. Let's try that one more time. Off we go. H-E-L-L-O. This is how we say hello. Move your feet to the beat. Can you feel my heart beat? Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining in with enthusiasm. We are Berkshire Music Trust, and I am Wendy Harvey. I need to learn to use the clicker. I'm Senior Leader for Curriculum and Early Years, and I have with me two of my team.
I'm Laura Bridger. I'm the School Development Manager for Reading, Windsor and Maidenhead.
Hi, I'm Mel Hopkin and I'm Schools Development Manager for Wokingham and Bracknell.
Fantastic. So we have started, as we always do when doing any kind of CPD for schools, with music. So thank you so much for joining in. It is quite intimidating with this massive room in this style of seating, but it's so important to start with music when we do any kind of CPD or training. Fantastic. So I'm going to start today by giving you a little bit of information about us as a hub and our context. So Berkshire Music Trust is a charitable trust serving 5 unitary authorities. We're the lead hub partner for Berkshire Music Hub, which from September 2024 has also included Slough Music Service, a 6th unitary authority. Our schools team also includes one more school development manager, Janie B, who's not with us today. We have an administrator, Naomi Hinton. Laura and Mel and Janie were all new in post last September, and it's been really fantastic to have a really strong team with a really broad breadth of experience and fresh ideas working with me. It's been a great year. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture about where we were at with school engagement a year ago in 2023-24. We faced, as I'm sure many of you have, a massive increase in the number of Academy Trust networks working often across county boundaries. So obviously we're tasked as music hubs with working with Academy chains. Not easy when they are not geographic. Difficult to keep track of them and difficult to work with them in a sustainable way. As I said, we work in 5 unitary authorities, plus a 6th one served by Slough Music Service, and they also have very different ways of engaging with their schools. Some of them run networks for their schools, some of them do not. Many of them charge schools to participate in those networks. There are big differences in how much our different unitary authority schools engage with us as a music hub. We found engagement in a recent event that we did for CPD varied by as much as 10% from one unitary authority to another. So there's a lot of challenges there. Lots of challenges in historical relationships with our schools, as we're often perceived as a music service providing instrumental tuition focused on classical instruments. So that needs to be quite a big shift, and we're often not seen as people who can talk to schools and advise them about curriculum music. But we have a really strong team for that now. In Slough, relationships with schools have historically been it seems to me, much stronger. So we've got lots that we're learning from them, which has been fantastic. Until this year, and continuing really, our flagship programme for school engagement is our Junior Music Festival. Basically, it's a singing festival which involves primary schools coming together to perform as a massed choir. We have area rehearsals and meetings which provide a CPD opportunity for primary school teachers to develop their leadership of choirs and singing. And in 2024, our 3rd school development manager, who's not here today, Janie, developed a senior singing festival as well. and we had a really successful first event where secondary schools also came together for a massed choir event. We plan to repeat that in 2025-26 as a biannual event. In total, 36% of our schools participated in one of these singing festivals last year, which is really fantastic. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that in action now. Watch out for the young lady conducting from the balcony. Amazing. So brilliant little future conductor there. I should have said before, that was our 2021 Junior Music Festival, which was moved online at the very last minute due to COVID restrictions. And it was done, rather than having an audience, we had the schools in bubbles distanced across the venue, and which is why we've got really great video footage of it, because it was all filmed and shared with parents in that way. And really incredibly uplifting. Okay, so in 2023-24, we had great attendance at those singing festivals, 36% across primary and secondary, and also we've got middle schools and junior schools in one of the unitary authorities to complicate things further. Very poor attendance, our Twilight face-to-face CPD of only 3%. We had a turnout of 15% for our county-wide online network meetings. They were focused on MPME2 and the Ofsted Music Reports. So good engagement, but because there was something specific to talk about, and that's when we've utilised that online county-wide option. Overall engagement was 19%, not including the singing festivals last year. So not amazing, and we wanted a new approach. This year, so far, after only half a term, 21% of schools in Berkshire have attended face-to-face CPD. We launched our first schools conference at Wellington College on the 18th of October, and we've already delivered 15 out of 41 requested free CPD sessions in primary school meetings, of which we're going to now hear more from Laura.
Thank you, Wendy. Good morning, I'm Laura Bridger, School Development Manager for Reading, Windsor and Maidenhead. To support schools, we try to stay on top of Ofsted advice, and Music Mark really help us with that. In one Ofsted webinar by Mark Phillips, one music teacher asked, how could we improve school engagement with free CPD aimed at schools, as it's really hard to persuade busy staff members to attend our music hub. Indeed, as you can see, we had the same problem. Only 3% of schools were engaging with our CPD sessions we offered centrally. Mark Phillips explained that we could bring CPD to the schools instead, referencing Liverpool Music Hub, who actually go out to schools to deliver CPD sessions to them. After this, I put this to our schools team as an idea for us to visit them for CPD, and this reaches multiple staff for each school, not just the most confident music lead. It raises music on the school's agenda for all staff, and also increases awareness of new and exciting teaching techniques, making music an incremental learning journey with a specific endpoint, not just an activity to be squashed into the school day. The focus of this conference is sustainability, and this is met in that we travel to primary schools and deliver to the whole staff, not just the one music specialist. Rather than multiple staff travelling, just ours goes into schools, reducing fuel and associated costs with catering and childcare for attendees who were previously coming to us. Also increasing sustainability is the idea that rather than reaching just one staff member in a school who may then subsequently change post to another school, we're hitting a larger body of staff who will remain in post, therefore having a more lasting impact on the musical culture of the school. Having had this idea, however, I'm a secondary music specialist and I really needed primary expertise from our team. So Mel Hopkin as a primary specialist and Bimby Shaw-Cottrell as singing development coordinator devised the sessions and then trained the rest of us on how to deliver the CPD in primary schools. Because we've pooled expertise across our team, this CPD conference concept is not reliant on one person in our team and can be delivered by many of us instead. This is really useful when many of us also juggling teaching commitments or part-time schedules. It also means that should one of our team leave, then the project remains sustainable as many of us can continue it for several years to come. To make it accessible for all schools and encourage participation, the first session within the year is completely free to schools and subsequent sessions are charged at £95 for the hour. I'm going to pass you now to Mel, who will explain the sessions in more detail as she created them so you can see what we're offering.
Thanks, Laura. As Schools Development Manager for Wokingham and Bracknell, part of my role is to maintain a dialogue with schools about any support they require. Many schools, when talking to me about their development plans, cite the lack of music input in most initial teacher training courses and the resulting overall lack of confidence teachers have to deliver good quality music lessons. It was these conversations, together with evidence gathered by Ofsted in their recent subject report, that I drew on when designing our CPD offer. For instance, Ofsted notes that schools, when considering the curriculum, leaders thinking focused on giving pupils a range of musical opportunities. Fewer schools had considered ambition in terms of incrementally developing pupils' musical knowledge and skills. They also noticed the lack of expertise in some schools. In some schools, leaders knew that some of their staff did not have the confidence or knowledge to teach aspects of the music curriculum, but far fewer leaders had a clear plan for training staff and addressing these weaknesses. And also considering what the curriculum outcomes should sound like. Had leaders considered the outcomes of their curriculum and were they able to evaluate that effectively? So with these findings in mind and our knowledge of schools' needs in our areas, initially we decided to develop 3 sessions to be delivered in schools to assess the impact and take up of this as either a twilight session or as part of a school staff meeting or on an inset day. So I'm going to talk you through those 3 sessions now. So the first one we entitled Brush Up on the Basics. So this session is intended for schools in which staff lack confidence in their own musical ability. Maybe they received little to no musical input in their own teacher training. Perhaps also little music in their own schooling. They perhaps do not see themselves as musicians and are therefore not well placed to provide opportunities for musical learning for pupils in their classes. The session explores 3 fundamental musical dimensions: beat, rhythm, and pitch, through practical activities using simple songs and rhymes that can be easily reproduced in the classroom. Thanks must be given here to Sing Up, whose developing musicianship toolkit was the inspiration for some of the activities in the session. During the hour-long session, we explore beat and meter through the use of a bouncy ball, stretchy lycra, body percussion, and movement, with the emphasis on fun. And the sessions I've delivered so far have certainly lived up to that. We've had a lot of fun. Pitch is introduced using the voice, exploring different pitch registers, songs with a widening pitch range, and again, leading on to simple visual representations and the beginnings of pitch notation. Even though this session is not about notation, do drop it in there a little bit. Teachers are encouraged to fully participate in the activities, and time is given to reflect on the teaching pedagogy and learning sequence so they can begin to see how they can be used with children. We as a schools team also spent some time recording ourselves doing all the activities, which we then compiled into a YouTube playlist to share with participants after the session. And I'm going to play you just one of the videos. You can see us having a lot of fun back in July recording these. Off we go. Lemon lime, keep in time. Make it neat. Feel the beat. Not too fast, not too slow. Keep it steady. Go, go, go. That was a great morning, doing all of those. And the Lycra has been a big hit in schools so far, certainly the ones that I have visited. So moving on to our next session, Ofsted also noted in their subject review that in most schools, the weakest aspect of the curriculum was teaching pupils to become better at composition. And this is certainly borne out by the feedback we receive as a schools team when talking to music leads, and something many schools ask for support with. Therefore, I designed the next session and we entitled it Let's Create, which explores composition in the primary curriculum, referencing the model music curriculum as an example of what progression might look like. I again tried to make this as practical as possible when developing the content for this session, with teachers taking part in the activities themselves to gain an understanding of the skills and techniques involved. The activities are also presented to teachers as enabling musical literacy, and I find this a really useful term to use with non-specialist teachers because they can draw lots of parallels between the musical activities we do and language learning, their own English teaching. It emphasises the importance of using quality material, and we use it as an opportunity to promote the BBC 10 Pieces website, which is an excellent free resource available to all schools without a subscription. During the first part of the session, we explore improvisation as a precursor to composition, simple, recreatable activities that encourage participants to begin to think creatively and musically, using body percussion and classroom instruments. And I think I've got an example of one of those activities that we recorded. Again, we recorded videos to accompany this session. We're going to use the pentatonic scale, so we've taken out our Fs and Bs and we only have notes C, D, E, G and A. I'm going to play 4 beats and we will improvise our own melodies in the gap. And again, from the sessions that I have delivered, that's gone down really well. Very, very simple. Everyone gets a turn at making a musical response. So participants are then taken through a sequence of composition activities based on In the Hall of the Mountain King. I chose that because it's instantly familiar to most people and very accessible, and it's available on the BBC 10 Pieces website. And I think we're just going to look at the video if we can link to that. There we go.
I have got to be going. That's why I'm tippy-toeing. Trolls and beasties all about. Time for me to get out. If they catch me, I will be in the pot for their tea. Every sound that I hear makes me think something's near. This music by Edvard Grieg is about escaping from a mountain king. But this is no ordinary king. He's revolting King Troll. Music brings the tale alive, but do you think I'll survive? Is this just a little dream, or is it time for me to scream?
think it's really good to promote the BBC 10 Pieces website, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And as they've just developed so many new resources, it's always good to remind schools of all the resources that are out there for them. So during the Let's Create session, I'm just going to go back so we can see. We familiarise the participants with the music, and then using the instruments available in schools. And the schools I've been in, they've all had different instruments available. I always ask them just to put out all of the instruments, and we try and use them all. I take them through a series of activities to show the progression, what progression might look like from Key Stage 1 all the way up to Upper Key Stage 2. For example, we explore how to create a simple graphic score in Key Stage 1 using untuned percussion sounds, and then gradually adding simple rhythm notation and dynamic cymbals. We then explore how to create simple melodies on tuned instruments using a limited note range and using simple rhythm notation to record. And I do take them through very, very simple crotchets and quavers and rhythm cards, which they find really helpful. Just those tools that they can use to quickly compose their own melodies. Finally, to show what is possible in Upper Key Stage 2, participants create a contrasting melody using a different set of notes and put both together to create a piece in ternary form. And I found it's really helpful to show them that you can create those structures quite easily and simply. We also explore adding simple melodic ostinato accompaniments to add sophistication and bring all the ideas together into one recreatable piece of music. And again, participants are given access to that YouTube playlist so that they can see the activities and try them for themselves with their classes. And I also give them a document to show the progression in skills compiled from the model music curriculum so they can see it all in one place. Just going to move on. So for our third session, as Laura informed us before, we called on the expertise of our singing coordinator, Bimby Shaw-Cottrell. Although singing is noted by Ofsted as a strength in many primary schools, confirmed by the conversations we have with them, this can often be down to a few staff in each school with the skills and expertise to lead singing effectively. But overall, using their singing voice can be a daunting prospect for many teachers. They may have been told they can't sing at an early age. They may have enjoyed singing at primary school, but not had so much opportunity to do so at secondary level. They may have little knowledge of how to teach a song to children. And they may simply just lack confidence in their own voice. It exposes a lot of vulnerabilities, singing in front of a lot of people. So this session, again, encourages active participation, beginning with a segment on how to use your voice safely and ideas for warm-ups and short songs and activities that can be incorporated into the daily school routine. Participants are guided through how to teach a song using 3 Little Birds, which should already be familiar to many people. Time is given to questions and discussing any concerns teachers have about using their singing voice in the classroom, and links to useful resources are distributed. Now, I don't have a video playlist for this, so I thought we'd do something live together to find our singing voices, so I'm going to call on my colleagues. So one thing we like to do with non-specialist teachers is, again, have fun, and all these sessions are designed to be really fun sessions for them to get involved with. And one way of finding your singing voice is to turn it into a game. So we're going to sing a song that might be familiar to you. Do join in if you know it. We're going to imagine we're shaking hands with someone, and we're going to sing High, Low, Chick-a-Low. I'm just going to go, we might know it. It goes like this. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, high. Join it with me if you can. Ready, and high, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, high. And this is a brilliant one to do with a partner, so we're being social as well. So, Wendy's going to do it with me. So we're going to put our hands back to back, and we're going to make our voice go high and low like that. Off we go. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, high. Do turn to a partner if you've got someone nearby, maybe someone you haven't met before. Let's try it. Ready, and off we go. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low. High, low, chick-a-low, chick-a-low, high. And that's the kind of atmosphere we're aiming for. So we've all found our voice. Thank you, everybody. Nice brain break as well after all this talking. So that was a brief overview of the 3 sessions that we have already been out delivering in schools this term. So I devised the content for Brush Up on the Basics and Let's Create, with Find Your Voice devised by our colleague Bimby. And what's crucial is that we've shared all this as a team, as Laura told you before. And so we planned in time for Bimby and I to talk through the session content, try the activities, make refinements. We all made suggestions. So it was very much a team effort. And then everybody was then trained to deliver the sessions in their area, and we have already started to do that. We spent a half a day in July, as you've seen, recording all the activities ready to share with participants. So that's part of the sustainability model, is we want the teachers to go away and try these activities. And if we go in there and it's a flash in the pan, they're not going to remember. So those videos, I think, are going to be really important in making this a sustainable model. The CPD sessions were included in our school's brochure, which came out in April, and schools were invited to sign up for the sessions to be delivered from September 2024. And I think we had over 40 schools who engaged with that and requested the sessions, and we've started delivering them. So schools then contact us as the school development managers, and we arrange to deliver the sessions in our areas in the county. So far this academic year, we've delivered, I believe, 12 sessions in schools across Berkshire. So if you do the maths, think about how many teachers there are in each of those schools. That's potentially hundreds of children that have already been impacted by the CPD programme. And we have more sessions planned in already for this term and going into next term as well. We've been collecting feedback from participants through a Microsoft form linked via a QR code at the end of each session, and that's been really helpful, and the take-up has been really good of that feedback. And as you can see, feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, which we're really, really pleased about. As you can see, 87% of respondents so far would recommend the training to others, with 91% of them feeling more confident about teaching music. A lovely word cloud there. I love the word practical. So they love the practical ideas that they get from the sessions, and the interactive elements of the sessions as well. So that's a really useful way of seeing what they enjoyed. And the overall rating is 4.57 out of 5, which we're very, very satisfied with. So we'll be gathering even more feedback as the year goes on. And what we've been doing so far, we can only refine these sessions by going in and delivering them. So I've delivered several of these sessions so far. I think I've done 5 Brush Up on the Basics and 5 Let's Create. And I've been developing and refining as we go on based on the reactions of the participants and their feedback. So for example, the activities in Let's Create, I've changed quite a lot as time has gone on, so I can better illustrate the progression in skills, so that they can see that progression all the way from Key Stage 1 up to Upper Key Stage 2, which is difficult to cram into an hour, but I think I'm nearly there with it. We also have plans to make it even more sustainable, so we are just thinking of ideas about how we can encourage schools to follow through and use these ideas in their own teaching. So we're thinking about maybe setting them some tasks to do, to come to feedback to us about, maybe gathering video evidence. So we're still thinking about ideas to make it even more sustainable as we move through the year, and so that teachers can really embed these techniques into their teaching practice. So that's an overview of our sessions. I'm going to, so we're going to finish with some music, because we started with music, we'll finish with some music. So we're going to do a little bit of improvising. I'm just thinking about how I'm going to work it in this room. I think what we'll do is we'll do some individually, and then I might split you up. So you saw there was some improvisation in the gap with untuned instruments. Obviously we haven't got instruments, so we're going to use our body percussion first of all. So I'm going to clap 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Wendy's going to clap a rhythm. You get the idea, and Laura, okay? And then I think I'll open it up to you. I might have you guys over here, and then I'll have you guys in the middle, and then we'll have you guys over there, because there's so many of you in the room. So let's finish with a little bit of improvisation before I hand over. In the middle. Oh, I love the glass. That was amazing. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to hand back over to Laura, who's going to talk a little bit more about our future plans.
We found that holding school development plan meetings then leads to schools happily requesting CPD sessions, and we can tailor the CPD to immediately meet some of the needs highlighted in their development plan meeting. It also means that the development plan feeds more accurately and powerfully into the whole school planning and vision for SLT. This raises music on the school's agenda and is therefore more likely to have a stronger and sustained impact on the learning outcomes of young people. Following our CPD sessions, schools are often keen to book in another one. Going forwards as a team, we're considering branching out into new areas. So Mel has also piloted one for notation at our conference recently, which is really, really lovely. And I'm looking at inclusive ensembles as a way to support more schools who are looking to start orchestras or bands. Our colleague Janie B also has plans for a garage band CPD session. And we could also ask our inclusion specialist, Jamie Reed, to organise one aimed at special educational and alternative provision sessions so we can reach more teachers and more students than ever before. And we have a partnership with Reading University that Wendy will explain a little bit more about, who are training the next generation music teachers in Berkshire and exploring ways to collaborate with their students to deliver CPD sessions as well. This all adds to the impact of our CPD as a music hub, which Wendy will illustrate further.
Super. Okay. So, in addition to our CPD and staff meetings, which was really aimed at non-specialists, we also held a conference in October at Wellington College, which was aimed at music leads. So music leads from every setting, primary, secondary, SEN, alternative provision. There was something there for everybody. The day opened with a keynote lecture from Vaughan Fleischwasser, to which we also invited head teachers to come along just to that session. We're very fortunate to have him talk before he moves back to Australia, thus avoiding a very unsustainable carbon footprint and, obviously budget issues as well with that. And that was really well received and inspirational. Rather than delegates travelling to a single twilight CPD session, they were able to travel once and receive 5 sessions during the day. And coming out of school for the day rather than tacking something on to the end of their day, I think was really important from a well-being point of view. We all know that school teachers are so very overwhelmed, and this was a day out and a break for them. Wellington College, private school, massive private school in our area, kindly hosted the conference completely free of charge, and ABRSM were also our main sponsor, and that allowed us to keep the cost at £50 for state school delegates. And that meant that, schools were really willing to send people along, which was brilliant. Wellington College is a beautiful, beautiful setting, so that was a really nice break and a restful place to be. We got really positive feedback on that. Conference was attended by schools in the 5 Berkshire Music Trust unitary authorities and also those served by Slough Music Service, which was wonderful. Obviously just beginning to work more together with Slough, and that it was wonderful to have them join us for the conference, and there was a really good turnout from those schools. Each time slot included sessions for all settings from primary, secondary, SEN and alternative provision. As you can see, when I zoom in, I don't realise that's too small to read. So this is just one slot in the day. So we aimed to have a session in every time slot that was going to meet the needs of delegates from all the settings that we're seeking to serve. Was a tricky timetabling conundrum, but it did work in the end. The feedback from the conference was overwhelmingly positive. There's some quotes there. The only negative feedback was on lunch, typically. There just wasn't enough food. We had to go and buy our staff sandwiches. But, if that's the only negative, that's okay. And overall, delegate feedback was 9 out of 10, which we're absolutely thrilled with. Our first time doing this event. And the requests were really that we do it again, either annually or biannually. We're not going to do it annually. We haven't got the capacity, but we are aiming to do this again in 2 years' time, which is really exciting. So that's really meeting the need for more in-depth training for those who are music specialists and secondary schools in particular that need something more involved. Okay. along with this, we've also really been developing our Lead Schools programme. We really feel that Lead Schools are key to further improving our school engagement, particularly at secondary level, where we're very much aware that I was a secondary head of music before I joined music service. Laura was also from a secondary background, and Janie has worked in both secondary and primary. But we're very much aware that once you step out of that, you very quickly lose your specialist knowledge of exam courses and that type of thing. So we're really aware that we need those Lead Schools on board and supporting each other. That's really crucial. So we pressed ahead and appointed primary and secondary schools, as I'm sure many of you have done, in the majority of our local authorities. We do still have some gaps, although we've had 3 more applications in for Lead School since the summer. We will go out and visit those music leads and head teacher or a member of the senior leadership team. We felt that that's really important. The SLT are on board to support. Partnership agreements are in place for those that applied last year. We've got a really strong emphasis on partnership working for our Lead Schools. We're very much aware that there may be other schools in the unitary authority who are just as strong at delivering music, but the crucial thing is that they also need to have the capacity and the desire to commit to the Lead School role. They may not feel able or be willing to do that. We have met together with our Lead Schools for an afternoon, which was wonderful. They were so excited to be out of school for an afternoon and get some free lunch. Doesn't take much to keep them happy. We did offer some support with cover costs for that, but actually not one school took us up on it. And I think that's wonderful that actually they're there because they want to support, and their head teachers released them quite happily for that. We spent that afternoon setting KPIs for the afternoon, which you can see on the display there. So the first one was infrastructure and advocacy. So the first bit of that was launching our Lead Schools via the schools conference and through social media, which we did. One of our Lead Schools brought a choir to start off our conference, much like we had this morning. Wonderful secondary school choir. It's a big commitment to bring them along to do something like that, and it was wonderful. Reviewing and strengthening our communication channels with schools, which we don't feel we've got quite right at the moment. So we're going to look at using a blog for that, and we've been talking to Hampshire Music Service. One of our Lead School teachers has come from there and said, you need to look at Hampshire's blog, so thank you for that. We're talking to them about that for some new ideas. Looking at our networks, so auditing the existing networks. As I said, there's a real patchwork going on already. Identifying what's happening already, finding out where the gaps are, making sure that we link up with those through the Lead Schools to avoid duplicating work and make sure it's sustainable for everybody. We can't be everywhere at once, and neither can teachers in schools, so making sure that those work really well. Keeping online network meetings where that meets a need, while also being aware that if you want to do CPD, it is much more effective face-to-face if you're doing practical music. We looked at resource sharing collaborative projects, lots of issues that we identified around copyright with those. So we really tried to focus in on something and focus on a transition project for year 6 to 7. So we're going to aim to provide resources for schools to support transition between primary and secondary. And the one that the schools were most excited about actually is coaching and mentoring. They're really keen to support other schools, which is wonderful. So some of them have got quite a lot of expertise within their schools, secondary schools in particular, with coaching programs, and we will be putting together a program for that, auditing the skills that they have so that we can link up with schools requesting support. And there were some great conversations around that at the school conference, and we were able to introduce people who were saying, I really need help, and we were able to say, brilliant, come and speak to this person. They're a Lead School and they can help you. So we're very much in the early stages of that, but it's really exciting, and I think that will really further boost our engagement with schools. Fantastic. I'm going to pass over to Laura now to talk a little bit more about challenges faced.
Thank you for illustrating, Wendy, how our Lead Schools will continue to shape our ability to support schools across the county. However, there are some challenges that we face as a hub, many of which may affect your hubs across the country too. We currently have 6 different unitary authorities across the Berkshire Music Hub now that Slough has joined us as a partner. And some unitary authorities are already working very closely with us, which makes it easy to reach more schools and more students than before, whereas other areas do not. So we are working to close that gap to make sure that we reach more teachers successfully. Indeed, the new hub landscape means that we can draw on the expertise that is currently in Slough to support us with providing more enriched services across the board as an additional strength. Berkshire also benefits from a rich and diverse range of cultures and languages. This means that the number of young people who have English as an additional language is growing, and we need to find more creative ways as a hub to reach and support them by diversifying our offering going forwards. Our Lead Schools programme is still only in its first term, and we feel we have a great deal to explore further by delivering it. A challenge we face is the cost of peer-to-peer observation, so our Lead Schools are keen to visit others, as Wendy mentioned, and observe and coach. But how can we contribute to the cost of cover for the mentoring teacher to be able to visit the teacher in another school being supported? And finally, in our CPD programme, one more challenge is represented by making these sessions have longevity. How do we build in tasks to take away from the CPD sessions to ensure that the learning is embedded within their teaching practice going forwards? I'll pass you back to Wendy, who will explain how we will overcome these challenges in her vision for the future for the schools team.
That was a big handover, Mel. I'm not sure I can do that. Brilliant. Okay, so Laura, sorry, I'm getting names in the muddle as well now. Okay, brilliant. So our vision for the future is a genuine partnership between Music Hub and schools, with all our schools understanding the purpose of a Music Hub and the benefits of music education. Our Lead Schools, as I said, are essential to making this vision a reality. Laura mentioned one of the challenges being costs, and our Lead Schools are actually very creative with ideas of how to do that. And some of them have worked in programs where they've videoed their teaching and then taken that back to coaching. So it's quite possible that we can do a lot of that online without any need for face-to-face visits. And that, of course, that is much more sustainable as well, not just from a financial point of view, but from an environmental point of view. We're looking to create a functioning ecosystem for the benefit of all children and young people across the county, and getting all those things linking up and making sure that it's not dependent on one person who might move on either in school or at the hub, and really sharing that good practice and working as a team. Something else we're also investigating at the moment is developing an advocacy approach, which enables us to persuade schools, parents and young people of the huge benefits of music education. So that's something we're just beginning to look into, getting our tools for advocacy, making sure that we understand what the barriers are, and working on our ability to convince people of why it is worth putting money and resources and timetable behind music. Laura mentioned before that we have a partnership that we literally had a meeting about last week with Reading University Education Department. So there is a PGCE course and a 4-year BEd course, I believe, at Reading University. We have a good relationship with Rebecca Barclay, who works there, and some of her students have they work in a choir, which she runs after school for children local to the university, really as a chance for her students to practice on a real choir, which is wonderful, and very much on a musicianship basis, similar to what Mel was talking about with our brush up on the basics, and also some of the aspects of our Let's Create training. And one of her students has identified that they need to adapt some of that teaching, particularly for SEN students and neurodiverse learners who might find a clapping game like the one we just did actually really difficult. It's in your face and quite challenging. So they've been developing some resources around that, and they're going to work with Rebecca to develop a whole program that we can add to our delivery to adapt some of those things to those students in mainstream school. They're also really keen to come out and deliver CPD with us. So we will be looking in the next few months to develop opportunities for them to come out, partner with us. So we will still be the person leading the CPD, but they might be able to do some sections of it and gradually build how much they're doing. And in that way, we're looking to really make a sustainable future for music teaching. We need those teachers coming through, and I'm sure, as you're probably all finding, recruitment of teachers is really difficult. Both for hubs and also in schools. So partnering in with them and making sure that we are giving teachers who will probably be going out to be generalist primary school teachers really strong music skills, and also using their expertise. One of the students who wants to work on that project is neurodiverse herself, and that's a lot of her understanding of what students' needs come from that. For example, drawing rhythm notation in sand is something they found works really, really well and gets the students who are struggling to focus much, much more engaged. So we're really excited about lots of these opportunities, and there'll be lots more to come. It evolves on a weekly basis of new ideas, which is really wonderful. Mel, do you want to are we doing another one? Questions? Okay. Lovely. Any questions? In the last session, they said, we are going to stay here for the next 10 minutes, so you might as well ask some questions. So maybe Laura could be a roving mic. So has anyone got any questions? One down there, Laura. Thank you. Thank you, Yusuf. Brilliant.
Hiya, thank you. What's the cost for the buy-in for schools to get involved with this?
With which element?
In terms of, obviously you offer the training and what have you, to go out to schools, and you offer cover costs.
In terms of lead schools, or in terms of... So for the CPD sessions, we offer one free CPD session a year.
95 after that.
Which comes within our leadership time. For the other sessions, they can buy those in at a cost of £95 per session. So we do have some schools that have had all 3 sessions. They booked them and said, we want the free one, but we want the other 2 as well.
How many people would you have in one of those sessions then?
So they're delivered at the school, so it would be all the school staff, all the teaching staff from the school.
That's what I'm thinking. If you had £95 per...
No, that hits the entire school for that money. So it's really good value training for them. And the other thing, they're so pressed for time, aren't they? And obviously, often they will say, we can fit you into a staff meeting. We can't give you any time on inset day. And actually, that works for us because we can go after school and deliver that. Any other questions? One over there. I think within our 5 unitary authorities, 315 at the last count, with lots of new small SEN private provisions popping up on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. Well, as I think we said, 41 requested from our schools brochure last year. More are coming in all the time because of the conversations we have in school development plan meetings. Obviously, we're constantly getting in contact and having more discussions. It's not a problem we've encountered yet, and when we do, we'll face it. But I'm happy for more right now. So, yeah, it's a really good question. I guess we could say we're booked up for this year, and we would start to put in a book now, slots go fast. I can 2, 3?
Not very many so far.
A handful.
Probably single figures.
Yeah. So we did one, Laura and I went to a school and the CPD day in September. Laura did a session and I did a session. Are we going back for another one at some point for that school, I think?
It's just 2 sessions at that school.
It was 2 sessions.
I think schools want to see what it's like and see how useful it is. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, and then they often come back and say, actually, we'd like to pay £95 for another session that's very reasonable. Thank you. And then they book us in, usually.
The other thing to say with that is we have, so for the singing one, we have trained one of our voice teachers to deliver that as well. So because it's all very clearly planned and the resources are all there, we can expand who can offer it. So that is an option, but obviously the cost grows. At the moment, it's being done within our leadership time, and it's a more effective way for Laura and Mel and Janie and myself, I help with them as well, to talk to schools than sending a lot of emails, which is what we get bogged down in. So it's so much more impactful that it feels like the right way to spend our time. I think you'd agree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it very much depends on the school and the expertise in the school. So far I've delivered, I think, half and half between Brush Up on the Basics and the Let's Create. I haven't delivered a Find Your Voice one yet, but there are some in the pipeline. But yes, it depends on the expertise in the schools.
And our conversation with them, so that would come out of our discussions often of what they need and how confident they feel their teachers are. Absolutely. So the playlists are on our YouTube channel. Just look up Berkshire Music Trust. Let's Create, Brush Up the Basics, Find Your Voice. There's also lots of other stuff from our singing strategy coordinators. You're really welcome to make use of those. Other stuff, come and talk to us afterwards. Yeah, no problem. Where's the mic?
I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about the process you went through to appoint your lead schools.
Yep, sure. So we went for light touch because we know what our schools are like. As we told you at the beginning, they're not always brilliant at engaging. It has been a challenge. So we produced a form that laid out what the roles of a lead school were, which was taken from the Arts Council guidance on that. And there was a short form with questions about how they supported music for every child in their school, stuff to do with proportion of students with on pupil premium and how many of them were engaging. It was quite general and broad and a fairly free form for them to share with us what they're doing. Even such a short and simple form is enough to put off many of our schools, we find. It will be different in other places. In Slough, interestingly, they did have to pick from a number of schools. They were all had their hands up saying, yes, we want to do this. The position for us was very different. And as I say, we didn't have a single unitary authority where we had 2 primary schools or 2 secondary schools who applied for the role. And that wasn't for lack of us inviting them. We did, sometimes they say afterwards, can we still do that? And we're like, well, no, we've appointed someone now because we asked you a lot of times. So there's a little bit of that. And there are some that have kind of come to us, yeah, I do want to do it, sorry, I just need to do the paperwork. And that's where they've sort of come in later. But I think we wanted to make sure that there was a certain amount they had to do to show that they were committed and that they were going to actually participate rather than just get a badge. But we didn't want to make it onerous. So we've got a form that we use for that.
Do you have more than one lead school in primary then?
Yeah, so the guidance was
schools.
1 per unitary authority. So we have only 1 unitary authority from our 6 that doesn't yet have a lead school. No, the 2. One we're about to have a meeting with, and another where we haven't had any applications.
And final bit, can you rescind a lead school?
We have done our partnership agreements for 1 year, partly because we don't know if there's, things are going to change, because they already did, didn't they? The goalpost changed to next summer, but we went ahead. So our partnership agreements are until the end of this academic year, and we will review them at that point, and that's been made clear. In general, I think there's 1 school where we feel, I think they're just too busy to engage in the way that we need them to, but the others have all been really on board. But yeah, they will be reviewed, and if we don't feel that it's working, we can change that. Yeah.
You had your hand up first. Hi, I'm Ben from Suffolk. Just wanted to, if you could comment a little bit on, have you perceived any difference in school engagement with the growth of multi-academy trusts across your region?
Laura, do you want to answer that?
Yes, so there's a vast proliferation of multi-academy trusts across the country, which has changed. For us as a schools team, the things that we found challenging are, for example, we want to support schools by creating networks and also joining existing networks. We don't want to compete with a network. But for example, one of the academy trusts that I work with, the Oxford Diocese Trust, it actually links schools across 3 different counties. So I was invited to their network meeting and I presented about Berkshire Music Trust, and half the attendees were delighted and they were really excited about what we could offer. The rest of the attendees were really frustrated because they didn't have to be in Berkshire. So it's a tricky one. So we're currently auditing our schools to find out what networks are you already in that we can come along and support with, because we're not trying to compete. And then areas where we don't have any networks, then we're trying to create a new network. But it's a delicate balance between competing and providing an opportunity that's not there, because multi-academy trusts, they often have their own subject networks, and then local authorities will have their own networks. So it's an interesting one going forwards, and we're still negotiating that new landscape of multi-academy trusts.
Thank you. Just going back to lead schools, I was wondering if you could maybe talk us through some quality assurance processes that you may have kind of put in to maybe mitigate reputational risk, not only for your hubs and your unitary authorities, but also for the schools involved.
That's a really tricky one, isn't it? And I think we know them all, don't we? And we know their provision. I know that some hubs have gone and done observations, and we really did think about that. And in the end, we didn't do it, which may be something that we revisit further down the line. But they are schools that we already know well, and we know that they're doing a lot of good stuff. So we didn't go and observe teaching. So we took a very light touch on that, and others may have a very different approach, which would be really interesting to hear about.
Thanks. I was just interested how you engage special schools and if it's different to the approach with mainstream.
So we didn't have a lead SEN school. We have one that we were nagging that we wanted to apply, and they have now sent us a form which they thought they'd sent before. So we do work with them quite closely already. So again, it's a school we've got an established relationship with, and they are actually forming an academy chain with several other SEN schools within our county. So it's relatively straightforward from that point of view. We have an inclusion manager, Jamie Reed, who is really good at talking to those settings as well. And generally he will advise them and have conversations about the sort of specialist provision that they might need, and then he brings the school development managers into that conversation in order to move that forward in terms of staffing and making sure that everything is put in place, an ongoing relationship. So yeah, we have someone else that takes that forward a bit more. He very much fed into the conference. He delivered at the conference. We launched our accessible instrument library there, so there was lots of input there as well. So we draw on his advice really, but I would say it's an area for development, and it's one of the things that Laura picked up there, how we can meet the need for training in the SEN schools more in future, definitely.
There we go, thank you guys. Round of applause, please.